I started using GLP-1s myself just to deal with my weight, which is actually why I became a dietitian. So you see somebody on TikTok lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds in a month. That person is not doing a service for themselves. This GLP-1 medication is game-changing because of the brain impact that it has. I thought, oh, I'll just lose the weight, get off the medication, and I'll be fine. I gained all the weight back. There is no understanding about the lifestyle required to be successful. Then I started listening to what some of these people were saying, and I was like, oh my God.
Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to Project Longevity, sponsored by Brello Health. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Caulen Foster, and this podcast is all about things life, lessons, and longevity. Each episode, I sit down with top industry leaders in the health and wellness space who are helping to shape the evolution of modern healthcare. With that being said, today we have Ana Reisdorf. She's a registered dietitian and founder of GLP-1 Hub. And with over 15 years of experience and personal insight as a GLP-1 user, she helps individuals pair smart nutrition with sustainable lifestyle change for long-term health. Ana, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, likewise. So the first thing I always like to do is just to get some insight into how you got here. Well, how did you start? How did you start this amazing platform and this multi-channel network of just really amazing resources for people looking to get involved in this form of longevity?
Sure. Well, I've been a registered dietitian for actually almost 20 years now.
Okay.
Time flies. And I really wanted to help people lose weight when I started my career. And so I started in gastric bypass, preparing people to get ready for gastric bypass. But what I realized just how challenging it was. Yes, I could hand people like a meal plan, but that didn't change all of the other factors that were affecting their health and their weight. Right?
Yeah.
So I actually ended up going away from that because I felt like I couldn't be effective. And I've done a lot of different things in my career. I taught at the university. I ran a marketing agency for a long time for health and wellness brands. And about 3 years ago, I started using GLP-1s myself just to deal with my weight, which is actually why I became a dietitian, so that I could figure out that piece of the puzzle.
Wow.
And I was successful with GLP-1, but I did everything wrong. I had not been a clinician for many years, so I wasn't familiar with the medication. You know, it was like a new thing for me because I'd been working in content marketing for a while. So I, didn't really eat because the medication doesn't really make you eat. And I thought, oh, I'll just lose the weight, get off the medication, and I'll be fine. I gained all the weight back. So there were so many things that I did wrong. And I started looking at the information out there at that time. And I found GLP-1 users sharing their stories, maybe 2 or 3 other dietitians, and nobody else talking about it with any sort of real, clinical understanding or background in actual, health or nutrition. There's so few. And then I started listening to what some of these people were saying, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There is no understanding about the lifestyle required to be successful.
Right.
One day I said, what if I started the hub for all things GLP-1?
Yeah.
And so that's where it was born. And it started in 2025. And it's really blown up since then. And I'm just feeling so great to be able to provide that kind of information.
What I love about that story, it's like you started with the intent to help yourself and help others, kind of went through your own evolution, and then found a way to do it again, right? And then this time you did it from a place where you actually started to see the things that you wanted to see for yourself. There's so much amazing stuff to unpack in that story because it's like such a multi-layered journey. Let's start in the beginning. Like when you say that, because obviously there's been a tremendous amount of evolution between gastric bypass, which was at its time very revolutionary because it inherently just restricted the food that you would eat, correct? What is like the primary difference in the mindset, how that was before and how it is today?
All right. Well, gastric bypass is obviously a very extreme intervention, right? You're permanently changing your anatomy in a way that's, not reversible, has many severe complications possibly because you can bust open that pouch again and all sorts of things. So it's very, very risky, especially on people who have morbid obesity.
Right.
And then the other piece of it is it doesn't last.
Right.
I wrote my master's thesis on gastric bypass, and the good outcome is really you keep off 50% of the weight that you lost after 5 years.
Got it.
Which means people gained it back. This GLP-1 medication is game-changing because of the brain impact that it has. That just made your stomach smaller, but it didn't change that craving, that desire. So people would regularly eat through and stretch that stomach out again. And that's where the weight gain came because it wasn't changing the brain physiology that causes you to want to eat, to have those cravings, the dopamine cycle,
Right.
all of that this medication impacts, which is why I think it's so successful now and not nearly as extreme as having a massive surgery.
Yes, it was like almost forced portion control, right? Where you have like the difference is like kind of forced portion control, like I guess like a medical intervention for the portion control versus now it's like you're changing the way your brain signals to your body. What would you say is kind of like been the biggest impact outside of your physical change, being somebody who's on the medication and is experiencing other benefits that may not just be associated with weight?
Really is confidence. I have been a registered dietitian for 20 years and I've never gone to our annual conference that we have every year for all the dietitians. And I'm kind of like a famous dietitian in the very tiny dietitian world. I don't want to make it seem more important than it is.
No, it is.
But I had never gone because I never felt confident enough to show who I really was. You know, I was fine being on camera, like on, you know, in social media, but I never felt like I could show up there. And this year I went and it was like celebrity came to town.
Yeah.
Everything that I had built over the last 20 years in the dietitian community, like people came up to me at that meeting crying, thank you so much for everything you've done for me. And like, I cried for like 4 days when I came back from that because it just really like, I had the confidence to show up. I wore the outfits I wanted to wear. I came as who I knew I could be and who I knew I always was. And the GLP-1 gave me that.
That's amazing. And so essentially it kind of like helped with imposter syndrome, I would assume, because you built this amazing platform, you're comfortable virtually, but you find this blockade between like who you know you are and versus who you perceive yourself to be. Right. And it kind of broke that barrier. Where do you see GLP-1s in the form of longevity medicine and longevity lifestyles?
I mean, they're having so many uses that are improving people's life in dramatic ways. So I think there's still so much to learn about the long-term effects of this medication. I mean, obviously losing weight will hopefully improve your longevity, improving your blood sugar, improving your cholesterol levels. But I actually think it's a lot more than that. Yeah.
I think one of the things that a lot of people are really starting to understand is that like longevity besides the medicine, right? Talk to me about some of the things that you see from your community and the people that you speak with about like, what are the lifestyle changes that you see alongside the medication that have the largest impact on people's outcomes?
What I think this medication gives us an opportunity to do is finally actually do those things that were so hard before, those things that are going to improve our longevity. Yeah. And so I think there's an openness to really be able to do that because now we don't have all that food noise, all of those cravings, all of those things going on. Yeah. And so the main things that I always focus on in terms of nutrition is eating. Seems really basic, but your body still needs food. Trying to eat protein 3 times a day. I like to push people away from the obsessive tracking and the calories and the macros and the things that we've done for so long that to me were like kind of a waste of time. Yeah. You know, and a brain space that I didn't need to have. Yeah. And then really focusing on those fruits and vegetables to get that fiber in. And then based on some new research that's come out about GLP-1 and potential nutritional deficiencies, solid multivitamin for everybody. Yeah. What are some easy sources of protein that somebody could get? Because, you know, not everybody, you know, on top of the fact that maybe some people may not even have the desire to eat, now they don't even have the desire to cook. So now you're really fighting, you know, 2 blockades that are keeping you from wanting to even get the protein. What are some easy sources of protein that you would recommend that have helped you on your journey? Sure. So obviously high protein foods are animal foods and then beans and legumes. So those are the main sources of protein, but there's so many things out there that are quick. We've got a million protein shakes out there. So even if it's just that, you know, sipping on it all day, that's great. I like to have certain beef sticks or tuna packets, things that are shelf stable that don't require cooking that I can just grab quickly. And I really see everywhere I go. Not very healthy chain restaurants that we have here have started offering high protein menus. So I think that this protein thing is really becoming popular and people are looking for that. What should the protein intake look like for somebody who's getting started? I'm sure it's kind of dependent on some markers there, but just generally speaking, what would you recommend? I usually recommend that people stick with around 100 grams a day. If you're very large and a man, you know, and you are exercising a lot, you might need a lot more than that. Right. If you're a tiny woman, maybe less, but on average, 100 grams. I personally try to just get protein at each meal and make sure I eat 3 times a day. And
Yeah.
if I need a snack, then I'll choose something high in protein. So what I have in my brain is around 25 grams per meal, and some meals will be 40, and some meals will be 18.
Yeah, and sometimes those, like you said, like a protein shake, the protein shake I drink has about 35 grams of protein. So I mean, you basically got a third of your protein intake for the day just off of a shake. So you would advise that shakes are okay as a form of getting protein source. Any particular protein that you would recommend? Is it whey? Is it a plant-based, or is it any source?
I think any at this point, because I see that people are having a hard time just getting something.
Yeah.
So I don't think that protein shakes are something that you should live off of, right? You shouldn't have 3 protein shakes a day and then that's it. That's not, you should eat food.
Yes, right.
But we live busy lives.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie and say that, trying to get the kids off to school and breakfast and this and that I don't just have a protein shake and a piece of high fiber toast. I got my protein and my fiber and I'm good. Right?
Yeah. What's your go-to meal? Would you say is like you're consistent? Like, is it like me? For my every morning I have eggs. That's my easy source of protein. It's got 8 grams per egg. If I have 3 eggs, I just got 24 grams of protein. Obviously, my intake would be a little higher, but what's your go-to food, your go-to protein source?
I love those tuna packets that are flavored. So the buffalo one is one of my favorites. I could have like a whole stack of them in my fridge. And then I really like the Chomps meat sticks. Easy to get, easy to put in your bag.
Yeah. And it's a good source of protein. I mean, you're probably talking about 12 to 14
They're about
grams
10
protein.
to 12.
Yeah, that's super solid. And then if the tuna packets are probably even higher, they're probably 18 to 20. So, I mean, if you have 2 of those things together, you've got about 30 something grams of protein. What are the things that you advise people to do when it comes to their increase in mobility and exercise? Somebody who's maybe never exercised before, don't have a lot of experience with it. What would you say that journey looks like when it comes to starting exercise?
I think that some type of weight training is absolutely necessary for somebody on a GLP-1. And I've had people be able to do chair exercises. When I was doing gastric bypass prep, that's what we did. Chair videos. There's tons of them that you can find on YouTube, or you can just use a can and do something because you have to move. I think that's what's really contributing to people struggling with their weight is we just sit all day and never move ourselves. And I know you have to work hard, work up to it sometimes. Yeah. But I've had people that they started by walking to their mailbox because that was all they could do. Yep. And then, to the neighbor's house and then a little bit further. So just trying each day to do a little bit more is what's going to make a difference.
So if it's somebody who's just starting out, you're basically saying, hey, like maybe you don't get to the weightlifting right away. Maybe you start with just walking around the block, walking to the end of the block, up to the end of the block and back. That is a successful entry point for you. And I think a lot of people, what happens is they have a tendency to feel like if they're not at the gym lifting weights, then they're not exercising, right? There's like some physical component that they have to have. What you're saying is like, it doesn't have to be that extreme. When somebody does get into physical weight training, any initial tips on things that they should start with? Is there any type of initial exercise that somebody could look up on YouTube that you say, hey, like go look up how to do a bicep curl or something like that? Anything initial?
There's plenty of introductory videos and things like that, but I would actually recommend seeing somebody one-on-one, especially if they're dealing with any mobility or health issues. Even just one consultation with a trainer, somebody that knows and can work within your limitations. Yeah. That's what I always recommend for people that are really new. Yeah. And one trainer session won't set you back that much.
And at that point, it's probably worth the additional expenditure to get some sort of baseline. So when it comes to your definition of longevity, now that you've seen this kind of shift in how you perceive weight management, lifestyle, how do you define longevity these days?
I think it's really hitting those goals, the vision that you have for yourself when you're 80. For me, I want to carry my suitcase all over the world and I'd be 80 walking around, So what is that vision and how do I get there and not lose so much muscle that I can't do that and I can't walk up the stairs and, so having a strong vision for what those older years looks like, because a lot of us might live a long time. I'm 45 years old right now. Like I might live another 40 years easily. Yeah. So what do I want those years to really look like? And it's not sitting, I used to work in the nursing home and it's not sitting in that nursing home.
I've always been very intrigued by like the golden years generation, the older generation, and what their pieces of advice are as it pertains to health, wellness, and living. What were some of the things that you learned about living when working in a nursing home?
Well, some people, are there not through fault of their own.
Right.
But some people really just made choices that weren't supporting them having that life that they want.
Yeah.
So continuing to exercise, continuing to move your body, I think really maintaining that muscle. A lot of the older generation, I think, is really focused on weight, like scale weight, and not aware of just the yo-yo dieting and the 80s diet culture that we had and all of that, how much that impacted their long-term health. And I'd like to shift that conversation now to be like, it's not about what the number says. It's about your body composition, how much muscle you have, how well you can move.
Yeah.
That's what's going to keep you, out of that nursing home.
Right. Yeah. Because the thing is, a lot of people, what happens is as they get older, they kind of succumb to the things that are happening to them, I feel like, because at some point it becomes out of your control. What you're saying is more along the lines of like, hey, start to take control early so that you're not in a place where you have to have this like great acceptance of what's happening to your body. What would you say is kind of like a major topic in the space right now that maybe people would like to hear about? What is something that is constantly coming up and you're like, here's my hot take or here's my normal take on it? Give me something, that insider information that you are hearing a lot of right now.
What I hear a lot is a lot of distress around how quickly the weight is coming off. And that kind of is why I'm trying to reframe the conversation a little bit about health and muscle and nourishing your body, because, with social media, you see somebody on TikTok lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds in a month.
Yeah.
That person is not doing a service for themselves.
Right.
So what I'm trying to kind of shift to is, how do we lose weight? A lot of people really do need to lose a significant amount of weight, and that's great. But how do we lose it in a way that's keeping that muscle, that's, supporting our nutrition, that's not giving us significant vitamin deficiency? So that's what I'm always trying to emphasize, is it's not how quickly you're going to get there, but it's how you're going to get there while supporting your health.
Yeah, it's not about the speed. It's about the quality versus the quantity, I guess. What would you say the expectation would be for people when it comes to weight loss in general? What's a healthy amount of weight to be losing where you're getting results and you're starting to see the difference, but you're not overdoing it? What would you say a healthy number is for that?
Depends on where your starting weight is and your gender, obviously.
Yep.
But 2 to 8 pounds a month, which nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I know they don't. I know they want 8 pounds a week.
Yes.
Yeah. So 2 to 8 pounds per month is what you would recommend as a healthy weight loss metric for somebody. What does that look like, right? Like, what is 2 to 8 pounds? What does that lifestyle look like? Because like you said, some people, they lose 30 pounds in a month. What does that look like versus what you say is like healthy? So, let's create a distinction between the two.
Right. Now, some people are going to lose a lot initially because of the inflammatory issues that, the medication does take away some of that inflammation, and that reduces their water weight.
Right.
So the number on the scale is going to be bigger.
Right.
That can happen, and that's not necessarily their fault. But what I'd like to see is people eating adequate calories. For some reason, everybody thinks 1,200 calories a day is the right number for everyone. Eating the calories, like listening to your body, eating those 3 meals a day, actually, even if you don't feel very hungry.
Right.
Trying to get at least that 20 grams of protein in a fruit or a vegetable at every meal. That's like the bare minimum, and monitoring that scale. And it just feels like people are trying to push it as far as they can.
Yeah.
Getting out of that, like, this is for your health. You're going to get there.
Right.
I would assume you didn't gain this weight, in a month.
Yes. Right.
So you're not going to lose it in a month.
That's a really great point. What are some pieces of advice that you would give to somebody about coming off the medication for whatever reason they may feel inclined to do so? How can people ensure that they get the best opportunity to not just have a bunch of regain?
Unfortunately, what the data is showing is that this is probably long-term medication for many people.
Okay.
Within 1 year, people gain about 80% of the weight they lost back. Now, you can go back to those really structured habits to see if you are successful at keeping the weight off. I just recently interviewed for my podcast one of the leading researchers on weight maintenance, and he has this study called the National Weight Control Registry, where he's been following people who've kept off, I think, 30 pounds for more than a year to see what they're doing. Number one thing, hour of exercise every day, no matter what. That's the thing that really helps keep that weight off.
I always like to say that's a nugget. That's a nugget right there. What is it that you would say is the primary cause of gaining weight back after a weight loss therapy?
Well, you don't have the effect of the medication anymore. So you don't have the blood sugar control. You don't have the quieting of the food noise.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that as a person who gained it back, for me, it was just not noticing. I've always had a healthy diet, but I just wasn't noticing that my portions were getting slightly bigger, a little bit at a time. And I didn't go crazy. I didn't, suddenly start eating McDonald's every day. Like I didn't change anything.
Yeah.
It's just before I could eat half a Chipotle bowl on the medication, and then I could easily eat a whole thing and finish the one that belonged to my kid. I didn't really notice. And then the weight kind of started creeping back up. And I will be honest, in my life, an hour plus of exercise every single day consistently is just not feasible for me. I'm more than willing to exercise.
Yeah.
I am. But I feel like
as
a business owner and as a mom and as this, like there's only so much that I can do.
I live that, so I'll go for 2 weeks straight of being in the gym. This week is a great example. Last 3 weeks I've been in the gym every single day, and this last week I haven't even driven past it. And haven't even thought about driving past it. So I definitely, but that is such a unique take that I've actually never heard about how it sneaks up on you, but not in the way that you would think like, oh, I'm just starting to eat significantly more. It's like you don't even notice it. And then you see yourself in the same way, like when you're a weightlifter, you eternally see yourself small, right? Like no matter how big you get, right? It's body dysmorphia in a way. But in this instance, I feel like it's kind of in reverse. Like you're not even noticing that the weight is coming back on because you see yourself every day and your portions are just incrementally getting bigger. At what point did you kind of realize like, hey, was it the scale? Was it how you were feeling internally? What was it that let you know like, hey, I need to kind of get back in control here?
I mean, I gained the weight back. And so I consulted with a colleague, because I have lots of wonderful colleagues who specializes in weight management. And she said, look, you can either do the hour and a half of exercise, eat nothing but protein, or you could just get on the medication.
Right.
And I'm 45 years old, like it's not going to get easier for me as I go into perimenopause and into menopause. She's like, you could just maybe use this support. You have a lot of stress and with all the demands on your life. And what's the problem with being on a little bit of this medication if it removes that stress piece from your life?
You just brought up a really great point that I want to touch on a little bit. For a lot of our members are either in perimenopause or they're going into menopause. And one question I think a lot of our community would like to know, and I think a lot of people in the industry would like to know, is like, how do you experience the journey for people on a weight loss therapy as their ages change, right? So somebody in their, late 20s, early 30s, going into perimenopause, like that's a different experience, I would imagine. So what should people be prepared for? Everybody's body's going to respond differently. But I think in certain age groups and certain demographics, things are a little bit more identifiable, I guess.
It's pretty, I want to say typical, not necessarily normal, for women to gain weight during that hormonal change due to the shift in the hormones. And then I think that menopausal women also have a struggle with cortisol, stress. We have a lot on our plates, and that plays much bigger of a role than we realize in terms of the weight. And so I've actually seen a lot of women just try to, use this medication to sort of mitigate some of that. Maybe they're not necessarily obese, but it helps them transition into that next phase of their life by helping balance those hormones and make weight not such a big, huge issue.
Yeah, it's almost like you're preparing for the next chapter, You're not being reactive. You're almost being proactive. One of the things that I always like to share with our community is comeback stories from people that they look up to in the healthcare space and in your world. So one question I'd like to ask you is, can you think of a time in your life where I always ask, like, what was your biggest L? Like, what was like your biggest loss where you're like, man, it was the hardest time in my life? And what did the comeback look like? How did you come back from it?
I think GLP-1 is my comeback story. I had this marketing agency. I had 10 other dietitians working for me. We were crushing it.
Yeah.
Every year I doubled the revenue of that thing.
Yeah.
Crushing it. About 2 years ago, Google changed how they rank everything.
Yep.
SEO changed. AI showed up, and the business just went under. And I tried for 2 years, and I cried, and I said, please, like, give me a sign. And then one day I said, what if I started all things GLP-1? And GLP-1 Hub is really my comeback.
So how can people connect with you? What are your social channels and ways for people to access the information that you're providing to the community?
Sure. So I have all of the channels. My biggest channel is my YouTube and my podcast. And it's GLP-1 Hub is the name of the channel. And then I have, Instagram and all the things, so they can find me anywhere. Ana
Reisdorf, everyone, absolute game-changing, unbelievable information. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about longevity medicine, please feel free to visit our website at brellohealth.com. Visit us on Instagram at BrelloHealth. Thank you so much. Stay happy, and most importantly, stay healthy. Take care.